Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So, I read some interesting articles about Candace Owens making statements about white supremacy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to summarize some of the points that she made and provide my brief commentary. This woman was called before Congress to give a statement about white supremacy, to answer questions about this issue of white supremacy, and she made some rather controversial remarks. Before I get into her remarks, the first thing that I have to say is, why is this woman being called before Congress to speak on this issue of white supremacy? Why is this woman being given such a large platform to spew her nonsense? Who selected this woman to speak before this panel? That's one of my main questions. It's like, how all of a sudden is this woman some authority on white supremacy? This woman's role is to basically downplay the significance of racism in this society, downplay the significance of white supremacy in this society, and to scapegoat black people, to make black people into their biggest enemy. That's what she's trying to do. That's the image that she's trying to paint of the black community. But this is what this woman had to say. She basically downplayed the impact of white supremacy and basically said that we have bigger issues such as quote unquote black on black violence. Again, that's a deflection. That's something that's designed to change the discussion, to have you talking about some black on black violence and actually avoiding talking about the very real issues of racism, white supremacy, police brutality. You will see this every time. Anytime a black person is killed by police, you have these minstrels, you have these Uncle Ruckuses and these mammies that come before cameras and they tell you and me that police brutality is not the issue. We need to be talking about black on black violence. And that's what this woman is doing. So she said this. She said, based on the hierarchy of what's impacting minority Americans, if I had to make a list of 100 things, white nationalism would not make the list. Out of 100 problems that black people face, this woman says that white supremacy and white nationalism would not make the list. Then this woman went on to say this. She said, white supremacy and white nationalism is not a problem that is harming black America. This is what this woman says in the face of all these attacks on black people, in the face of all this terrorism that's committed by these white supremacists. You have this buck dancing bed wench telling you and me that white supremacy is not an issue. In the face of all this violence, in the face of the fact that you have a Department of Homeland Security that has added white supremacist violence to its list of priority threats. I read an article where they were talking about more terrorist attacks being killed, carried out by domestic terrorists in the United States than by these foreign-based terrorists like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. The biggest threat when it comes to terrorism to black people is white supremacy, is these white nationalist groups. And we have all these examples of violence that has happened in recent years. We're not talking about the 1960s. We're not talking about even the 1970s or the 80s or the 90s. We're talking about now. We remember what happened in Charleston, South Carolina, when Dylan Roof went into that church. Dylan Roof went into a church where people were praying, where people were fellowshipping with one another, enjoying themselves, worshiping. And this man went in there and killed 9 innocent African Americans, but yet and still, you had this tap dancing mammy talking about how white supremacy is not an issue impacting black communities. Tell that to the families of those 9 victims, that white supremacy doesn't impact black communities. Tell that to the family of Timothy Kaufman, who was killed in New York City, where you had this white supremacist from the Baltimore area travel all the way to New York to kill some random black man. Tell his family that white supremacy is not impacting the black community. He killed this black man with a sword. This white supremacist killed this black man, Timothy Kaufman, with a sword. And you have this woman talking about white supremacy is not an issue impacting black people. Tell that to those people that were in Charlottesville, Virginia, who were ran over by a car, injured, severely injured. Tell that to the woman who was killed, to her family. And her name is Heather Heyer. Tell her family that white supremacy is not impacting America. Tell that black man that was in Charlottesville who was beaten to the point where his head was pouring with blood. Tell him that white supremacy is not impacting African Americans and minorities. Tell that to those Latinos that were killed in El Paso, Texas, while in a Walmart, where you had this white supremacist target Latinos deliberately, seeking out an opportunity to kill as many Latinos as possible. Tell those families that white supremacy is not impacting minorities. And it's like we have to bear in mind that the same people that hate the Latinos, the same people that are killing Latinos, are the same people that when given a chance, they would kill us too. Tell those two people that were killed in Kentucky while in a parking lot. I think it was a Kroger's parking lot. They were gunned down for no other reason than the fact that they were black. Tell them that white supremacy and white nationalism is not impacting black communities. Tell that brother and his family, the brother who was killed at the University of Maryland in College Park here in Maryland. Tell his family that white supremacy and white nationalism is not impacting black people and minorities. Here you had a brother who's a second lieutenant in the Army, a brother who went to Bowie State here in Maryland, minding his own business when a white supremacist proceeded to kill him. Tell him that white supremacy is not impacting black communities. And we look at white supremacy as something where it's just these groups that label themselves as white supremacy and the groups that label themselves as white nationalists. Well, the problem of white supremacy is it goes beyond those groups. It goes to the police departments that kill black people with impunity. They think it's their job to kill black people, to hunt black people, to, racially profile black people. Every other day we hear about another police killing in our cities, and you have this tap dancing minstrel, this tap dancing mammy, this buck dancing bedwench telling you and me that white supremacy and white nationalism is not a problem in our community. It's not a problem that we need to deal with. When you look at the violence, the so-called black on black violence that we see in our community, that is a result of a system of white supremacy. It is a result of people being deprived of resources and opportunities, being deprived of a decent education, being deprived of, job opportunities. When people are deprived, when they are uneducated, when they don't have the means to provide for themselves, they often turn to a life of crime. And that's part of the reason why you see the violence that plagues our communities. But yet and still, you have this buck dancing bedwench telling you and me that white supremacy is not impacting our communities. White supremacy impacts us in all kinds of ways. Another example of white supremacy are the efforts to suppress the black vote, to maintain a system of white supremacy, to maintain a system where you have white people dominating the political structure. That's why they try to do everything they can to suppress black voters, as documented in North Carolina, as documented in places like Texas. I've talked about the cases before, like how in North Carolina they targeted black communities with surgical precision. That's white supremacy. That's white nationalism. And it's just a damn shame that you have a black woman saying these types of things in the face of all these examples of violence perpetrated by these white supremacists. So, another point that I have to raise is this, man. This woman, it's no coincidence that this woman will be the one tap dancing on this issue of white supremacy, because white supremacists support this woman. You know, these far right extremists support this woman. They support her. We saw, that terrorist in New Zealand, that man that killed 49 people, that man that targeted Muslims and killed 49 people. He talked about how he was inspired by Candace Owens' rhetoric. He talked about her views helping to push him further and further into the belief of violence over meekness. That's what this man said. So this woman is a pariah. It's a damn shame that this woman is given a platform to spew her nonsense. And it makes it abundantly clear to me that this woman is nothing but a mouthpiece of white supremacy, a puppet of white supremacy, and she should be called out on this stuff every opportunity that we get. No black person should be putting her on their platforms as if she's just another voice of black opinion in the black community. That woman doesn't represent the black community. Much like the neo-colonialist puppets didn't represent the communities that they were put in charge of. She is a puppet. She is a mouthpiece for somebody else. Somebody else is pulling the strings. Somebody else is telling her what to say. This woman is an enemy of black people. And, people had this mistaken notion that, we need to try to have unity with all people just because they're black. Well, some people are not our brothers and sisters. Every brother ain't a brother. As, Chuck D said, every sister ain't a sister. And this woman is an enemy of the people. And we got to call her out every time. And it's just a disgrace that you have people actually giving this woman a platform to spew this nonsense. So tell me what y'all think. Please rate, comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video. Hit that notification bell so that you know when I post new content. Also, I want people to support my political campaign. Visit AnsonAsaka.com for more information about my campaign to become Baltimore's next city councilman for District 4. Peace.